Welcome to our very first episode of the Forever and Ever podcast. This is a place where we are going to talk about building resilient partnerships for marriage and even some relationships. And this is our first episode, but I gotta say, I've had great feedback from some of you of wanting to hear the podcast. Those of you who are part of the workshop, who have been reading the book, thank you so much for your support and for really just asking for this podcast to happen. So here we go. Today, our very first episode is going to be talking about embracing differences as strengths and relationships. And as we dive into this art of building a resilient partnership and this idea of a marriage that lasts, relationships that last, I'm really excited to start this journey with you. And today, as we look at this foundational, it's a foundational step for every strong relationship, and it is embracing our differences. That's a big theme throughout the book, and it's easy for us to fall into this trap of expecting our partner, our spouse, to see things exactly the same way that we do. And today, we're going to flip that idea on its head as we unpack one of these topics from the book. And what we're going to explore why understanding and valuing our differences is actually one of the greatest strengths that we can bring to our relationship. So let's get started with our first point. That is the idea of our differences and our different perspectives adding richness to our marriage and relationship. So let's start off by talking about this perspective. Each of us have a different way of looking at the world. It's called our worldview. And our worldview is made up of all of our experiences from the moment that we're born to the present moment. And it is this powerful concept that everything we see, all the ways that we talk, the way that we see the world, the way that we see our spouses, our family, etc., is made up of this worldview as defined by our experiences. And our backgrounds, our personalities, everything shape this view, and those unique views bring richness to each relationship. It's this idea that differences truly can feel challenging sometimes, yes, but they're also this beautiful opportunity for us to grow and learn from each other. Because if we only limited ourselves and our worldview to our singular experiences, well, there's a big world out there. There's a lot of experiences to be had. And at the end of the day, the world is bigger than just what you've seen. And being able to combine your experiences with your partner, you're able to have this multiplier effect as you're able to tackle different things together. So here's a quick example. Imagine a couple where one person is an optimistic. For me, that would be Lauren. And the other person is more of the realist. That's me. And we might approach different problems very differently. But us being able to collaborate can lead to a very positive place. Don't get me wrong. There's some friction that will come from the conversations that we have. But if I make everything out to be you're wrong, I'm right, and just try to silence her opinions or silence her worldview, well, I'm only going to be able to have the results of my worldview. But when we learn to balance these perspectives together, we can actually have this practical moment where we are able to find hope in what we're facing as we balance both the realisticness or even pessimism and the optimism. We can both practicality and hope together. And together, that creates a really great strength. Now, you could break that down into so many different levels, even just as simple as a budget. There might be a person that's ready to spend and another person that's ready to save. And there's plenty of moments where you need to loosen up and be willing to spend something. And there's plenty of other moments where you don't really need to buy that and it needs to be saved. The bottom line is that our partner's differences are not flaws, but they're actually pieces of this puzzle that complete our relationship. And we're able to complement one another in our differences. Now let's look at the second point, which is seeing our differences as strengths and not flaws. It means that differences don't mean that one partner is right and the other is wrong, but rather they're unique perspectives, that they're carrying these unique perspectives. Instead of seeing differences as something to fix or something to change, try viewing them as strengths. When we lean into what makes each of us unique, we're able to build a foundation of mutual respect and appreciation. I have often found that the things that we often get in trouble for as kids, and even now, are often these strengths within our personalities and characters that have not yet best been funneled. And even other times where maybe we have funneled them and we're using them great, but they still get us in trouble. And if we were to look at this idea of two people working together as an analogy, imagine two people who are in a canoe and each are paddling on opposite sides. If they paddle together, even though they're on opposite sides, they move forward smoothly. But if they try to both just paddle from one side, well, they're gonna lose direction and just end up going in circles as they continue just flipping from both being on one side to the other. And it's the same way with relationships, where we work together in respecting even our opposites, we're able to see each other's strengths and move forward, rather than when we try to change each other, sometimes they'll just lead us off course. A healthy relationship isn't built on just a sameness of us being exactly the same, but on respecting and appreciating each other's differences. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some times where you may need to have some absolutes that you agree on. But in the practical moments, like parenting, like budgeting, and etc., these are the moments where your different styles might be best. Now let's go into our final point, which is building empathy through understanding. When we try to understand our partner's unique thoughts, our partner's unique feelings, that is what it is to start building empathy. If we get into an argument and we only look at our side and we just convince ourselves that we are so right and we demand an apology, we should be justified. Maybe sometimes, but if we do not allow ourselves to be empathetic and understanding that most of the time that misunderstanding, that fight, that disagreement happen because y'all are just having a difference of opinion, y'all are having a difference in how you said something or took something, you have to be able to see how your partner feels and understand what they may be feeling throughout the day. You know, if you're the one that is the one who leaves the house and goes to work, and your partner is the one that helps manage the home. Maybe they're the ones at home with the kids and they do all the dishes and all the laundry and all that, etc. And you go to work and come back and you don't see how it could be difficult for them at home with all the real stress that is at home. Well, then you're missing empathy there. If you're thinking that they should just bow down to you the minute you get home, you're not really seeing life from their shoes. And vice versa, if it's as soon as your spouse gets home and you're the one that's been home all day and you have no respect for them being gone all day because they didn't have to hear kids screaming all day, well, then I think you need to also put empathy to be in their shoes, to understand that they have real quotas to make, that they have a real job, that they have deadlines and demands that require stress as well, and that y'all are both, again, pieces to a puzzle that makes y'all's family, but y'all need to have empathy for one another. Simply try to imagine what it is like, how you would be able to handle their kind of stress. You know, for me and my wife, there's different things where she does great and things that I do great. And when I sit down and think about handling certain things, it overwhelms me. I mean, sometimes when it's just my day to take after the kids, you know, she's usually primary cook, but there's a day out of the week where we switch roles and I'll take care of the kids and I tell her to leave the house and go do work she needs to do. And there's times where I'm just like, so what do kids eat? I feel like almost overwhelmed, just like even the thought of like putting together chicken nuggets and seeing if they want corn or, you know, like it just seems overwhelming to her. Like, man, I could barely handle this one day. And it helps me to feel empathetic to, you know, cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, something that she does every single day. You know, it's like the idea of putting yourself in their shoes. Now, major takeaway from today's episode: differences aren't barriers; they're opportunities for growth. And when we choose to see each other's unique perspectives as strengths, we create this balanced and supportive partnership. Next time you and your partner don't see eye to eye, remember, it's these very differences that often make your relationship stronger. Cherish them and learn from these moments of differences to see how it can actually bring y'all closer together. So I hope that this was meaningful for you, and I'm grateful for you tuning in to our first episode of the Forever and Ever podcast. If you'd like to dive deeper into this topic, join our free Facebook group where we are continuing to grow this group and it be a resource, an avenue for people to have a safe place to be able to talk about relationships and grow in their marriages. It's a place where you can connect with others as well as learn and appreciate the unique aspects of everybody's different relationships. And if you found today's episode helpful, consider checking out my book, Forever and Ever, for more practical tips on embracing our differences. Until next time, have a great life.